And we are live. Welcome everyone. Let me know in the chat that you can hear me properly. We've got about 10 minutes before to start. If any of you have no idea what you've clicked on, this is a live stream walk in London, and we've got about 10 minutes before to start. So if you're watching the replay in the next few weeks or months, if you want to skip the next 10 minutes, you can go straight into the walking tour. At the moment, we're just waiting for everyone to connect. And Matthew saying you can hear me. Perfect. Lovely. Great, you can hear. It's very windy tonight. So if at any point through the tour you start hearing a bit of the wind, let me know. It could be the microphone that gets disconnected. Perfect. Thank you, Tish. You know the drill, we're gonna test the microphone anyway, so I'm gonna tap it 3 times. You let me know in the chat if you've heard it. You should have heard a triple tap. Let me know if you've heard that properly. And it is nearly 9 p.m. UK time. We've got about 8 minutes before it's officially time to start. What's the emoji? Is that an ice cube, Tish? Or is that a tap? I don't know. Hi, Mitzi. Welcome, everyone. You've heard it. Perfect. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Tish. So we've got a few minutes before to start. If any of you were completely new to me, make sure you say hello in the chat. It's always great to have a few new faces. Thank you, Shaz. So tonight, so far, well, we are in Bloomsbury at the moment. We've got a bit of a walk because we've got to end up in Farringdon. Hi, Herbie. Oh, that's the wind emoji, okay. That's not very obvious. Well, you might see it a bit bigger than I do, but for me it's like a little blue ice cube or whatever. I'm in front of a Holiday Inn, so if you see a few tables behind me, it's the cafe of the hotel. We're not gonna talk about the hotel. There were no murders in there, as far as I know. Hi, Marilyn. I've not seen you, but I see people saying hello, so you must be there. Oh, there we are. Okay, let's see how long we've got. 8 minutes before to start. So tonight we're going for a little chilly walk. It's a bit colder than it's been in the last few days. It's starting to feel like Christmas. And nice to see you here, Anne-Catherine. Welcome. Who wants to stay in a murder-free hotel? Exactly. Hi, Julie. Nice to see you here. And thanks for the tip earlier, Anne-Catherine. So tonight, all of the murders are somehow linked to Christmas. Or sometimes it's the punishment. Because there've been a few hangings on Christmas Eve or today, the 23rd. Which seems like a funny idea. It'd be weird to go for a public hanging today, but at the time they didn't care. Oh, I think I'm gonna have to stand up because it's a bit cold sitting still in the wind corridor. Right, let me gracefully stand up. Check I've left nothing behind. Perfect. I'm gonna flip this camera for a sec. I was only started here because it was well lit, but we'll actually start down there. Oh, I don't like the way the gimbal has moved. Hi, Cynthia, and welcome everyone that just joined. Let me see. I think my gimbal is a bit. It's a bit shaky, isn't it? Well, I've just checked it now with my fingers, but that's weird. Let me see. That's me doing it with my fingers, but it's not as. It might be slowly dying, the gimbal. Let's hope it's okay for today. I've got my spare anyway in the bag, my old one, because it was a bit funny the other day when I turned the gimbal on. The picture is so clear. Great. Your grand got married on Christmas Day. Nice. Hi, honey. Nice to see you here. So we still have a few minutes before to go. Let me try to move, see if... it might be okay. No, might be fine. I don't know, I feel like it's a bit shakier than usual, but hey-ho. Right, let's see. We've got 4 minutes to go. And I am on Coram Street, which used to be called Great Coram Street. It's a short street. There's not much here apart from one murder. Let me see what time it is. Still 4 minutes. Hold on, bear with me. I'm just gonna do something. I've got, I'm just gonna pop you down the floor for a sec. I've got a jacket. I should have done that earlier. See, I've got those little buttons there, and that can trap the microphone cable. So I'm gonna flip the jacket. Sorry, not the best angle, but I'm just gonna do this. So the microphone cannot be trapped into the jacket. Sorry, not the best angle, but bear with me. There we go. And welcome, Tariq. Nice to see you here. Hi, Samantha. And welcome anyone that I've missed. So we've got a few minutes before to start. And welcome, Lee. Welcome, everyone. Two minutes to go. 2 minutes before it's officially time. It's fairly quiet tonight, but you know, London gets a bit empty for Christmas. A lot of people go back towards their families in the countryside or wherever they're from. So it is to be expected. And welcome, Israel. Nice to see you here. Cougar time. Who's a cougar here? Must have missed something. Right, let's see. It might be time to go. 1 minute. And it is officially time to start. Welcome everyone. If any of you are completely new to me, I'm Natalie, and without further ado, let's flip this camera around and let's go for a little walking tour. So we are here on Coram Street. Oh, I don't like my gimbal. I think it's dying. It's making some movements I don't like. Don't know if you can read much, it's a bit too bright, but this is Coram Street. That used to be known as Great Coram Street. And at number 12, there was a terrible murder on Christmas Day, 1972. The house is long gone today. Those are more modern buildings, and it's been renumbered anyway, so we won't see the exact spot, but it was down here on this little street that there was a lodging house. So a lady with a few lodgers. The landlady was called Harriet Wright. And one of the lodgers was another oh no, man, there's something wrong with my gimbal. I apologize. Every micro movement of the cable is triggering the gimbal. I think I've got one axis that's dead. But anyway, let's apologize about the movement and let's keep going. So the lady Harriet Boswell, her name was, the tenant. She had a little girl, 8 years old. She worked as a dancer in Leicester Square, but she didn't make much money, and sometimes, every so often, she had to sell her body to make an. Oh yeah, it's broken. My gimbal is broken. Oh well. So yeah, every so often she had to sell her body to make ends meet, and well, that night, so that was Christmas Eve, 1972, she went out to the Alhambra Theatre, so we're talking in Leicester Square. That's a place she wasn't working that night, well, not as a dancer at least. She went on for a drink and potentially to find a customer as well. You know, at the time there were a lot of ladies that had to sell their bodies because the dynamic between men and women was so different. And on the salaries as well, you know, any working class lady with a little income and a kid to feed with no men, they were very often struggling, you know. So the numbers of ladies in London that were selling their bodies was actually quite high. And she was witnessed having a dinner in a restaurant there on a drink with a gentleman, unidentified. She then welcome she who must be loved, and welcome Laurie, and welcome everyone else. So yeah, she went for dinner. Then they jumped on a bus, you know, those horse-drawn carriages, you know, those mini buses behind the horse. And she then decided to go. You know what, I think I'm just gonna swap my gimbal to my spare that's in my bag, because this keeps moving. It's gonna be very bad. Let me try to restart it first, and then if it keeps going, I'll just swap to the other gimbal. That's it. It's not much better, it's broken as well, but it's probably better than this. Bear with me, one sec. Sorry, close your eyes if you feel a bit dizzy, and let's see if it's any better now. Well, maybe. Now it's moving. Anyway, this is the horse hospital there. That's a bit like Camden. It was a hospital for horses that were injured. Bear with me one sec. I'm gonna get the spare gimbal from my bag. I had a feeling this one was dying, so that's why I brought the other one. The other one is partially dead too, but I think it's still gonna be better than this. Bear with me. Right. Up. Just go from here up, and I'll Sorry, I'll pop you down here for a second. I need to put this one away. I'm really sorry. There we go. That should be hopefully much more stable. Right, so yeah, this is the beautiful horse hospital. Well, beautiful, not beautiful, but it's quite cool that it's still there. Inside, now it's an art venue, but inside they still have an old ramp where the horses would, the ramp they would use to go upstairs. Anyway, let's get back to our murder. So she went to the theater with the gentleman. With the gentleman, she jumped on a bus as well. She ended up around here at Russell Square when they popped into a shop, a grocer, to buy some fruits. A greengrocer it was. There's a bit of the timing is not quite matching between the story of the landlady and the story of the greengrocer, but they went into the greengrocer, they bought some apples and some nuts, and they came home back to Great Coram Street. When they came inside of the lodging, the gentleman went straight up. The landlady saw him quickly, and he went straight up to the room. When Harriet went to meet her landlady, she spoke to her for a moment. She actually paid her rent, and she told the landlady that she was in the company of a handsome gentleman. He was a German gentleman, she said. Now, was he really a German gentleman? We don't know. That's what she told the landlady. But sometimes, they would say this type of stuff just for appearances, to make just to make it look better to the landlady. Who knows? Anyway, eventually she went upstairs to meet him. The next morning, about 6:30, the landlady heard the gentleman walking out. And about midday, she's getting a bit worried because Harriet is still not up. That's unusual for her. Then the landlady tried to open the door. The door was locked outside, but apparently it was locked from the outside, so they decided to break the door. They pushed the door, they broke the door open, and they found Harriet was on her bed. She had been brutally attacked. The bed was full of blood. Her throat had been cut very deep, almost to the vertebra. It was sliced from side to side, almost ear to ear, very similar to the Ripper murders. Well, some might say it was a Ripper murder. I mean, we are 16 years before the Ripper, but I personally agree that it's very unlikely that the Ripper has started his killing spree in 1888. He probably had some victims before. Anyway, we are now on Queen Anne's Walk, going to Queen Anne Square. That's where in the little square in the middle you have a statue of Queen Charlotte. The Queen Charlotte that was portrayed in Bridgerton as being mixed race. She potentially was a tiny bit mixed race, but that would have been 9 generations above her. Anyway, back to our murder. The throat had been slashed. She had some kind of handprint on her forehead, like a thumbprint. So the killer would have pushed his hand on her forehead as he was doing his deeds. And there was an apple on the bedside table that was half eaten, or not even half. A single bite was taken out of the apple, and as they did the autopsy, they did not find any apples into the victim's body. So they assumed that it was the killer that bit the apple. So in an attempt of very early forensic, they did a cast of the apple bite to have a cast of his teeth. That wasn't very useful, but that was a good try, Anyway, that's all they had, really. And because the police knew they didn't have much, they offered a reward, £200. That was a huge amount of money at the time. We're talking over 20k in British pounds today, which was probably a terrible idea, because, you know, let's say it kind of pushes witnesses not only to come forward, but to come forward with information that might or might not be true. Because of course everyone wants to be the one that helps finding the killer and then getting the reward. So, you know, people would come with random information, and indeed they had a lot of witnesses. They had the guy at the restaurant that knew Harriet, and he said she was with a German guy. There was a friend of Harriet on the bus that spotted them on the bus, and they described him as badly shaved and some kind of spots on his cheeks. And when Harriet said she was handsome, you know, to our landlady, and everyone said he was German, but the thing is, they had already published in the newspaper that the suspect was probably German. So, you know, anyone making up or trying to remember or even thinking they remember, sometimes they would come up with stuff they've already learned in the press, you know. The guy at the fruit shop, he claimed that they came after 1 a.m. when the landlady said they were back at 12:30, and they entered the shop. The guy had a German accent, and that Harriet, he knew Harriet, she was a regular, and that she had asked the guy if he could buy her some grapes. The guy said, no, with a German accent. So then eventually, obviously, the police was looking for a German guy because everyone said German. Little pause in the story. That's the back of Great Ormond's Hospital. That's a children's hospital. And they have a statue of Peter Pan inside because James Matthew Barrie, the author, he gave the right to Peter Pan, so the right to the story itself, after his passing, well, before he died, to the hospital. So we'll talk a bit more about Peter Pan on when is it, Thursday? Well, on Christmas Day, when we go down to Hyde Park and Kensington Gardens. Anyway, back to our murder. So yeah, the police is then looking for a German suspect, and there happened to be a German boat that was in Margate in Kent. The boat had to stop there for repairs. It was a boat full of German people that were immigrating to Brazil. And a few of them had come down to London, and they were suspecting one, and they decided to do an identity parade. And they asked for volunteers from the boat as well. And there's another guy that was, he volunteered actually. He was like, yeah, I'm coming to the identity parade. And out of the 7 witnesses or alleged witnesses, 5 of them recognized him. But the guy was a priest, and the public was a bit like, really? Could a man of churchmen could they be responsible for that? You know, the public was not convinced, and the guy was arrested, of course, but he had an alibi. That night he was actually into his hotel, and he was taken ill. He was very sick, and everyone at the hotel could confirm that he did not go out on Christmas Eve. So they had to release the guy, and the suspect was never found. I mean, the killer was never found. It's still a murder mystery today. Richard, I'm not too sure what we're talking about. Apologies. Anyway, you know, some say that it might have been an early case from Jack the Ripper. I'm not convinced. You know, it was 16 years earlier, but it is very much possible. You know, it is quite unlikely that Jack the Ripper just suddenly started in 1888. So, you know, why not? Now, there's another murder. So if Jack the Ripper indeed had his first murder at Christmas 1972, there is a possibility that he had his last murder at just before Christmas 1888. There's a victim of Jack the Ripper that was targeted at Christmas time. It is a lady, well, I say of Jack the Ripper, we don't know whether she was a victim of Jack the Ripper. Actually, we don't know whether she was a victim at all. But I'll tell you the story in a moment. For now, let me show you. So this is a funeral director. They have a lovely Christmas deco. Let me show you. It's almost like a Victorian little town with the train, the jolly trolley. They encourage us to take photos and post it on Instagram. I'm not sure I want to be promoting funeral directors on Instagram. Oh, Natasha, we can just ignore it. It's don't worry. And it looks like there's a proposal there. So yeah, quite a cool Christmas display. Okay, let's go. So yeah, the case of Rose Millet could have been a Ripper victim. Some people would argue that she was not a victim at all. So I mean, some people thought it was an accident, but she was also a sex worker. She was also from Whitechapel, but she was actually found in Poplar, so a bit further east, not too far, but it seemed to be her stomping ground, you know, where she was soliciting, and. She was found on the 20th of December, so a few days before Christmas. It took a while to identify the body because she was known under different names. She was known as Drunken Lizzie Davis. She was known as Fair Alice. She was known as Rose Millet as well. So it took a while. Actually, the police spent all Christmas trying to identify the body. She had been strangled, so a little bit of a different MO from Jack the Ripper. And there was a clear mark of strangulation around her neck. Yeah, you know, I don't like blocking people if I don't have time to read what they're actually saying. You know, some people might be having an episode, or you know, some people might be a bit drunk. I mean, you know, if it's just a few remarks, we can just bear with it, and if it becomes a bit more annoying, then we'll have to find a solution. But don't worry about it for now, guys. And welcome from Germany. Now back to Rose. She was she was found about 4 a.m. When she was found, there was no question that it was a murder because they could see a string, I mean the mark of a string for the strangulation, and also some kind of print, a thumbprint on a fingerprint on the on her neck. And it's actually only on the 28th of December that she was identified. But the pathologist was saying she had never had kids, when her mother said, no, she definitely had 2 kids, love. So there was a bit of confusion. And then eventually Anderson, the police officer, the same guy as the Ripper murders, he decided to invite another pathologist for another inspection of the body, and that guy concluded natural causes. He concluded that she was drunk and she had managed to fall and strangle herself with the velvet collar she was wearing. If you ask me, it's a bit ridiculous. I mean, she had, by the time of that autopsy, 5 days later, the fingerprints on the neck might have gone a bit, you know, but Oh, thanks, Genevieve. That's very much appreciated. So yeah, by that point, the fingerprints might have done, but it was definitely murder. It is very possible that Anderson and the Metropolitan Police in general, they were a bit ashamed of themselves, not having able to locate Jack the Ripper. So they probably did not want another murder on their patch. So they probably decided to, let's say, find a way to get the pathologist to say that it was an accident. We'll never know. Personally, I think it was definitely murder. Was it Jack the Ripper? I'm not convinced, because the operating mode was so different. But if you believe that Jack the Ripper was the guy called Charles Cross or Charles Lechmere, the suspect that, when I wait because it's a bit noisy, the suspect that famously found Polly Nichols' body, if you believe in that Lechmere theory, quite close to where the body was found in Poplar, there was a Pickford depot. And we know Lechmere worked for Pickford. So, maybe. Oh, thanks ever so much, Samantha. That's very much appreciated. Thanks, everyone, for your tips. Anyway, so yeah, we've got, we've got 3 connections to Jack the Ripper tonight. But for now, we also had, I don't really like to talk about modern, recent murders on my tours, because they're still so fresh, I don't want to be, the family is still around, and, but we had some crazy Christmas murders in recent years as well. Now, little pause. Down there, that's Red Lion Square. You probably remember we've been there when we talked about Oliver Cromwell, and the 2 judges, their bodies that were taken down from the ground, taken up from the ground and hanged again. Yet, they were already dead, but hanged again and potentially swapped in a pub. I'll show you the pub in a moment, although it's not the original, it's been moved. But yeah, that's the place. Now, yeah, we had a horrible case 10 years ago now. Well, 10 years ago exactly today. That was a lady from Hackney in East London. She was, I think, 23 years old. She was a teacher, a good lady. Her name was Katie Locke. She was a teacher. She worked in a Catholic school teaching history. She was also a kayak instructor, and she worked with underprivileged kids. Everyone loved her, and really just a nice person generally. But like many of us, she had decided to look for love on the internet, and she was very well aware of the risk. It's of course a bit risky to go on dates with people not only you don't know, but none of your friends know, and you don't have a background on them. And, it's different when you meet people that are friends, or when you meet people in a pub, because someone knows them. When you meet them online, no one knows them. And everything could be fake as well, including their names and everything. That was the case with him. He had a LinkedIn profile when he pretended to work in the law industry. And by the way, we are here in the area with a lot of lawyers, and we're just above Lincoln's Inn Field, so a lot of lawyers have their offices around here. But anyway, yeah, he pretended to work in law. Quite a cute guy. I don't want to show you any photos because I don't want to give him some publicity, but they went for a drink in Shoreditch, and she was aware of the dangers of internet dating. So she had told her friends, she had even sent them a picture of him, and she told them where she was. Through the middle of the date, she actually texted them saying it's going very well, and but eventually the guy, Carl, his name was, he drank a bit too much. And she decided to nurse him home. To take him home to his hotel, because he was quite unwell. This is the Red Lion, so that's the pub we mentioned. It's not the original, but yeah, that's the pub where Oliver Cromwell and the judges, their bodies would have been taken upstairs, and according to some, they might have been swapped. I'm not convinced. I think they were not swapped because we still have Oliver Cromwell's head somewhere. But anyway, that's a story for a different tour. Oh, thank you, Diane. That's very much appreciated. Yes, so Our Lady from East London, she was so nice. She actually took him back to his hotel in Hertfordshire. She paid £65 for the taxi journey, and she had to pay £80 cleaning fee for the taxi because he vomited everywhere. He was violently sick in the taxi, so she spent a lot of money on the taxi to take him home. To take him back to his hotel in a safe place. And the next day, her friends were waiting for her for all the Christmas preparation and everything, and she was nowhere to be seen. They were calling her, no answers. And because they had his picture, they were able to find him on social media. They contacted him and he was like, no, she's left hours ago. She left in a taxi. She's fine. She's not with me, but she's fine. He was still at the hotel. He had asked for a late checkout. And eventually he texted another girl. He was in contact with at least 20 girls at the time. And he said, oh, I've killed someone. I'm a monster. And what he had done is that, at the hotel, the cleaners, they have those laundry trolleys, they used to bring all the dirty bed sheets and everything. He used that to take the body out, and he had buried her in a very shallow grave on the grounds of the hotel itself. So crazy case. It turned up that the guy was actually very well known by the police services as well as the psychiatric institutions. He had made some terrible threats before. He had even assaulted a nurse and stuff. But I don't think we can blame the health system really, because 97% of people that make threats, they never act on them, they never do it. So, it's not like if you could look up everyone that ever made a threat. Anyway, he was caught, he was jailed. In prison, he actually violently attacked a female prison officer as well. And eventually he managed to unalive himself in prison. But yeah, crazy Christmas murder. And we had another one last year. Last year, Christmas Eve, the night of Christmas morning, there was a girl in somewhere around Birmingham, Norton Keynes, I think it's called, just around Birmingham. She, in the middle of Christmas night, she went on Tinder and she realized that her ex had a profile. Not even her actual boyfriend, he was her ex. She jumped into a car and got into his place and she stabbed him to death. So yeah, we had some horrible recent cases as well. We'll see a few Snoopies soon. Some of you might know we have a Snoopy art trail in London. Well, not in London in general, on the Fleet Street district. Now, back to our murders. There's another case that, it didn't happen on Christmas. It happened in October, but she was punished on the 23rd. So that's the anniversary today as well. And this is the City of Yorkie. That's a very old pub. I think it's 1430. Well, not this. I mean, it's been redone and rebuilt, but it's quite a cool pub inside. They have those little kind of like, those little cubicles. When you sit at the table, you are in a little tiny cubicle. It's because it was at the time, it was full of lawyers, and they wanted to have those private conversations. So it's quite a cool pub. When people do historical pub crawl and stuff, they usually come down here. Right, so another case that some of you might be looking forward to here, because we kind of mentioned it before. It is the lady that has been accused of being Jill the Ripper. Now, I don't believe in that theory, but I'll tell you why people have said that. And the story she was guilty of is also very interesting. She was a lady, so we are two years after the Ripper murders. We are in 1890. So the Ripper murders were still fresh, in public opinion and all that. Mary, so that's Mary, well, technically she was called Mary Percy, but she was actually, her real name was Mary Eleanor Wheeler. She was a lady that lived in Kentish Town. She was, when she was young, she was quite a sickly child. She suffered from epilepsy and depression as well. And she was a very generous lady by all accounts. She would be the first one to give to beggars when they came and knocked at the door. She was a very generous lady. Now, let me stop here for a sec to show you. I'm gonna get my torch out, bear with me. There's one of my favorite London oddities here. It is a letterbox, a post box, those classic post boxes. Let me get the torch on. But down here it says Edward VII. Okay, so we're talking beginning of the 20th century. You see the letters ER7, so that's Edward VII. But if we look down here, that is VR, so that's his mum, Queen Victoria. What happened here? Well, it looks like a case of door replacement. Because some of the models have the cipher on the side, some of them have the cipher on the door, and there probably was an incident, maybe a car that crashed into the door or whatever, so they probably replaced the door with an older model. But yeah, that's the only one in London that I know that has a double cipher. So that's very unique. And the beautiful building across the street here, that's the Staples Inn. It dates back to the 16th century. It survived the Great Fire of London. So that's quite cool. They have some little shops in the underground floor. Now, you probably remember when you see the front of a dragon, you are entering the city of London. So we are entering the city here. I'm sure most of you remember when I say the city of London, I mean the city with a capital C, the business district, the old city. And when you see the bum of the dragon, you're leaving the city. So if I walked back the other day, we'll be exiting the city of London. Right, let me cross over. I probably shouldn't. It's starting to rain, but hopefully it's just a few drops, because I don't want to have to deal with the umbrella when it's windy like this. Right, let's see if I can go. No, I should wait for the green man. Be a good girl. It's tempting to go when the streets are quiet, but let's go. Anyway, back to Mary. So Mary Percy, she when she was young, she worked as a nanny, and the kids loved her. She was a very nice lady by all accounts. Let me show you her picture. According to all accounts, she was a very pretty lady. Apologies, but I don't find her very pretty on the picture. To be honest, I'm not sure whether that's an actual picture of her or whether it's the picture of the wax statue she later had at Madame Tussauds. If it was a picture of the wax, that would make sense that she looks even scarier than she probably did. because the guy that hanged her, oh, spoiler alert, she's gonna be hanged, but the guy that hanged her, I was gonna say spanked her, the guy that hanged her, he said she was the most beautiful lady he ever hanged. So she doesn't look that beautiful on there, but yes. Anyway, let me remove the picture. So yeah, she was, from all accounts, apparently very pretty. 24 years of age at the moment of the event. She lived in Kentish Town alone. She had been dating a guy called John Percy, so that's why she changed her name from Wheeler to Percy, although they were never married. And hi everyone that just joined. And well, she was caught in a bit of a love triangle. But before, let me show you this beautiful neo-Gothic building. It's late Victorian. We were talking about Barry earlier, James Matthew Barry, the Peter Pan author. He actually lived in there for a little while. Just a couple of years. After that, he moved to Bayswater on the side of Kensington Gardens. But yeah, this is the Furnival's Inn. Now it's, I think there's an insurance company inside, as well as still a few accommodation. Dickens has lived everywhere, but Dickens also had an apartment inside at some point, but it would have been the building before this one, because Dickens, it was in the 1840s when this building dates back to, I think it's 1889 or something like that. Anyway, back to Mary. So yeah, she was caught into a little bit of a love triangle. She was potentially in love with a guy called Frank Hogg. They didn't seem to be exclusive though, because she was potentially seeing other men as well, and Frank, he had a relationship with another lady. We are in London, so yeah, Frank had a relationship with another lady called Phoebe. Phoebe was 31 years old, and she fell pregnant. And Mary told Frank they should get married. I mean, him and Phoebe. So Mary blessed that wedding. She might have been a little bit jealous, of course, but she agreed. So she didn't fight to marry Frank or anything. She was like, yeah, you marry Phoebe, she's pregnant, so marry her. Phoebe and Mary were somehow friends, or at least acquaintances. There's no evidence that Phoebe knew that Mary was having sex with her husband, but she knew of her. She knew the two of them were friends. And eventually Phoebe had the baby, a baby called Phoebe as well. So they called her Tiggy as a nickname, because obviously otherwise it was a bit confusing. Up there you've got Prince Albert on its horse, and another Christmas tree on the other side. Anyway, one day Phoebe receives a letter to come 40 the next day at 4 p.m. at Mary's apartment in Kentish Town with little Tiggy. So the next day she took her pram with the baby and she went to Mary's place. She did not come home that night. The husband, Frank, didn't get too worried because Phoebe's dad was unwell, so he just assumed that she'd gone to see his dad in South London or wherever he lived, and he didn't get worried until the next day. You know, it's not like if they had WhatsApp at the time, so, you know, it's difficult to inform each other when you go somewhere. So Frank didn't get too worried, but at 7 p.m. that night, a body was found. The body of a lady on a dark alley in Hampstead. So quite a bit of a walk from Kentish Town. The lady had been dumped on a lot of rubbish. Her head was covered, but her head had been cut off. Her throat had been slashed very, very deep. The head was only attached by a bit of flesh, but it'd been through the vertebra and stuff. Anyway, little pause in the story. Let me show you our first Snoopy of the night. We'll see a few more Snoopies next week when we go down to Fleet Street. Right. So the Snoopies are there to celebrate the 75 years since its creation, basically, when Charles, the creation of the Peanuts characters in general, from Charles Schulz. The first Snoopy looked very different. He looked a bit more like a dog, and he didn't sleep on his house at the time. Actually, Snoopy, you know what? It was nearly called Sneezy. Not Sneezy, Sniffy, sorry, Sniffy. But there was another dog called Sniffy, so there would have been some copyright issue, so they went with Snoopy. Which is much better if you ask me. I couldn't imagine him being called Sniffy. Anyway, let's go and let me tell you a bit more about Mary. So, the body is found about 7 p.m. It's not been identified quite yet. The police is a bit surprised that there isn't a lot of blood on the scene, so they assume that the murder was committed elsewhere, and by the time she was dropped there, she didn't bleed that much. And about half an hour later, they found a pram, a baby pram, that was about a mile away, so not even right next to the body, and that was full of blood. So they assumed that the pram had been, so I'm talking about a baby pram, yeah? The Victorian prams, they were much stronger than today. They had those big wheels, metal stuff, strong stuff compared to today. And, oh, you live where Schulz lived. Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's. He was an interesting character as well, Schulz. He complained a lot of being bullied as a child and stuff, but people from his school were interviewed and they were like, no, he was never bullied. So he was depressed as well. All his life he suffered from depression. Anyway, back to the body. Sadly, the next morning, they also found baby Tiggy in Finchley. So quite a bit of work. The body was not bloody. They were not actually sure how the baby died. Potentially asphyxiation, but the pathologist, his name was Dr. Pepper. We had another case when we talked about Dr. Pepper. It might have been the Crippen case, or he's been involved in a few cases. Anyway, so Dr. Pepper was unsure how the body was killed. The baby, the Phoebe we know. Phoebe, it was a blunt trauma to the head, and then the throat was slashed later on. Now, at that point, they don't know who the body is. Of course, the newspaper were full of Jack the Ripper is back, until the next day, when of course Frank started to get a bit worried. His wife had not been back with baby Tiggy. Now we are now on the Holborn Viaduct. So you see we are above the street underneath us. And those ladies, those are like allegories of, so this one is commerce. On the other side you've got science and art. So this is a lovely viaduct here. Anyway, back to apologies guys, there's a few comments in the chat that confuse me. I don't know if I've missed something, so if I've missed any of your comments in the chat, I do apologize. So this one is agriculture. Anyway, back to our bodies. The next day, Frank is getting worried. His wife has not been back, and he was aware that she'd gone to, because she received a letter when she was invited to go and see Mary. So his sister Clara decided to go and see Mary, see if she'd seen Phoebe the day before. So Clara went to knock at Mary's door in Kentish Town. Mary opened and she said, yes, sure, I've seen Phoebe yesterday. She came to ask me for money, if I could lend her any money, and if I could mind little Tiggy. I said no and she left. And Clara was like, oh, you sure that's when she's gone? She's not been back, and I've seen in the newspaper there's a body that was found. And Mary was like, you know what, let's go to the mortuary. I'll take you to the mortuary just to make sure it's not Phoebe, right? So she goes with Clara to the mortuary to identify the body. At the mortuary, the police was there. Inspector Aberline. That name might ring a bell. It is indeed the Jack the Ripper inspector. And so they are at the mortuary, and then Mary says, you know what, Clara, I'm gonna save you the trouble. I'm gonna go and take a look. If it's Phoebe, I'll let you know. If it's not Phoebe, this way you don't need to take a look. So she goes in, they lift up the cover. She takes a look, she's like, no, it's not her. She goes to see Clara, she's like, don't worry, it's not her. And Clara is like, you know what, I'm not too sure, I'm gonna double check. So and Mary is like, no, it's not her, and don't go, and Clara is like, I'm gonna check. Clara goes in. At first she's not too sure, so the police officers actually cleared off the blood from Phoebe's face, and then Clara is like, oh, it's her, it's Phoebe, my dear Phoebe. And then Mary became hysterical, which was of course noted by the police, because that was such an odd behavior. So Aberline and the other police officers were already a little bit suspicious. Now this is the church, the Holy Sepulchre. You might remember that's the church where John Smith is buried. You know, the John Smith from Pocahontas. He is buried inside. Now here is another Snoopy. So those Snoopies, it's not for charity as far as I know. It's just a lovely little trail, because you know sometimes if those trails they're being sold for charity, unless they sell them later on, but they've not published any charity that I know of. It's organized by the Fleet Street Quarter BID. BID stands for Business Improvement District. We have a few bids in London. We've got the Strand bid, the Victoria bid. When you have those bids, all the traders in the area, you know, pubs, restaurants, bars, whatever it might be, they give maybe 2% of their income to the bid, and the bid does some little attractions or stuff like that to promote the area and make people come. Now this one is E2R, Queen Elizabeth II, so that's not that unusual. But I like those old post office direction. So if your letter is too big or whatever, the post office is this way. Now let's get back to our story. So yeah, the police officers are very suspicious already of Mary because her behavior was so odd. They decided to go to her place and pay her a visit. They knocked at the door. Mary is there. She welcomes them, no problem. And as they're searching her place, she starts to play the piano. And well, straight away, Inspector, I think it's McNaughton. So you have McNaughton and Aberline. So those are two police officers that were very much known for the Jack the Ripper story. They notice a little fire poker with a bit of blood on it, on hair. So they're already like, Then they go to the kitchen, and then they see a lot of broken glass on the floor and droplets of blood everywhere. They even found a bloody knife. I mean, everything was... So they went back to the living room where Mary is playing the piano still, and like, how would you explain the blood in the kitchen? And Mary is like, I was killing mice yesterday. And then, well, we don't know if that is true. According to MacNaughton later on he published a book called his biography, his memoirs. I think it's Hours of My Days or Days of My Hours, something like that. We know that MacNaughton was full of wrong information. You might remember we talked about him when we talked about Montague Druitt, the Jack the Ripper suspect. Anyway, this is the Old Bailey here. So according to MacNaughton, at that point, Mary says, I was killing mice, and then she plays the piano and she sings, killing mice, killing mice, killing mice, killing mice, killing mice, killing mice. It might have been a bit exaggerated, who knows. Anyway, here is another Snoopy. And you know what? We'll go down to the bottom of the street because there's another Snoopy there, and then we'll come back here. So she's basically, there's a lot of evidence everywhere. There's blood everywhere. They've got the knife. Apparently, she also had a ring. That was basically Phoebe's wedding ring. So she's looking very guilty indeed. She was arrested. But at that point, no one could believe that such a cute young lady with blue eyes could be responsible of such a dreadful murder. And they didn't even think she would have had the physical strength to carry the body. Well, there were some witnesses that had seen a lady walking with a very heavy pram with some item kind of sticking out of the pram. She does look very guilty. The question is really, was Frank involved? Some say that he worried a bit too late about his dear wife. The next day at noon. And some say that he must have been involved. They were an item after all. Did they try to eliminate the wife and the baby to have a life together? But the thing is, they never tried to be together before he married Phoebe. They could have. They were together before he met Phoebe. So it's not. Even until the trial, even at the trial, no one believed that Phoebe would have done it alone. Everyone looked at Frank. Even at the funeral, at Phoebe's funerals, Frank was heckled. The people would follow the coffin and heckle him, and so the public was very much of the impression that he was guilty, or partially guilty, because clearly. Whatever happened, it happened at her place, at Mary's place. Frank was often there. Mary had a system. When she was available for Frank to come and have some fun, she would put a special candle in the window, so he knew she was alone and he could come and visit. And he was also found with a set of keys, spare keys to her apartment. So there was no doubt they were having an affair. There were a lot of love letters between the two that were found as well. So there's absolutely no doubt about their affair. According to Frank Hogg, Phoebe did not know about the affair. Well, she would have known that they had some form of a relationship, but she probably didn't know that it was a love story. Now, of course, she was taken to prison, Holloway first, but then she was taken to Newgate. So that's where we were a second ago. We'll go back down to Newgate, but when I show you this Snoopy over here, straight ahead, that is Fleet Street. We're not gonna go down there because we're going next week anyway. But here is another Snoopy. It looks like Smarties or M&M's almost. The little sweets on the house, on the dog house. This one is a bit more simple, which is not bad. It's nice, simple as well. Right, bye Snoopy for now. Let's go back to the Old Bailey. So, she's taken to Newgate. She was found guilty at the Old Bailey, so she was sentenced to hang. 2 months later, so 23rd of December, 1890, she was sentenced to hang. Never ever did she try to claim insanity. She could have, I mean, she would have been spared, you know, especially that she suffered from epilepsy. She had had a fall apparently when she was young and she fell on her head. That didn't help. She also clearly suffered from depression. She had tried to unalive herself a few times when she was with John Parcy. So if she had tried to claim insanity, they would have spared her. She probably would have been sent to Broadmoor or something, but she would have been spared. She never did. She was like, no, I'm not mad, and I'm not guilty either. I know nothing about the murder. Which was, I mean, it's hard to, you know, there was a broken window. There was the neighbor as well. She had heard the sound of cries or moaning or screaming maybe on broken glass. She had tried to intervene, well, to check on Mary. She was like, Mary, you all right? She didn't have an answer, but she was happy with that. So she checked, but not too much. And the curtains had been closed. So she did suspect something had happened there. And anyway, so she's taken down to Newgate. Frank, you know what Frank did next? He sold the piano, the baby pram, as well as a lot of items from Mary. He sold them to Madame Tussaud. So for many years, you could go down to Madame Tussaud, see a wax representation of Mary, as well as the bloody pram and everything. You know what? There's actually one boy that went on Boxing Day. It was a boy that used to be nursed by Mary years earlier. And he didn't know. And he went to Madame Tussaud, and then he went to see his, another lady that knew the family, and he was like, you know what, I've been to Madame Tussaud, and the murderess, she looked like Nellie. Mary was also known as Nellie. Everyone actually called her Nellie. So the poor boy, he had no idea that his former nanny had been hanged for murder. Anyway, the date was set. The mother actually, let me show you a few illustrated police news clipping. The mother came to visit a few times. Mary was very sad that Frank did not visit. It seemed like she was hoping for a visit until the last moment. She was very, very calm. All her stay in Newgate prison, she was very calm until she realized that Frank was not coming, when she went a bit hysterical. And our lawyer, Mr. Palmer, kept insisting to try to get her to confess or to claim insanity, and she was like, no, I'm not mad. I've got nothing to do with it. If anything, I prefer to die than being sent to Broadmoor. So she never confessed. Let me remove the pictures now. A few days before the actual execution. So this is the site of Newgate, and now it's the site of the Old Bailey, so a court of justice. A few days before the execution, Palmer, so the lawyer, came back and he was like, are you sure we can still ask for a reprieve? We can still claim insanity? They actually did kind of try. There was a doctor that came to inspect her, but she didn't have a fit, or, you know, so she couldn't even prove that she was an epileptic. Some people believed that maybe she had committed the act in a moment of insanity, or even during an epileptic fit, and that maybe she did not remember committing the act. But even to claim that, you'd have to claim insanity, and she refused. Anyway, Palmer came and he was like, oh, last chance, should we try? And she was like, no. But I need to ask you something. Once I'm dead, can you go and place an ad in the Madrid newspaper? Palmer is like, yes, sure. What do you want me to write? And she says, let me show you. I've written it down so you can get an idea. She said, if you can write to MECP, last wish of MEW, have not betrayed. We don't know what that means. No one knows. And Palmer was like, oh, does this have anything to do with the case? She's like, no, not at all. Please do as I wish, please. I recall. And that's it. Now, MEW, that's probably herself. Mary Elizabeth Wheeler. Remember, Percy is not her actual name. Her name is Wheeler. But MECP, no one knows. Our mother doesn't know, our lawyer doesn't know, no one knows. My thought is that she might have been completely delusional at that point. I mean, she might have been completely making full-length stories in her head. Some people that kind of push the Jack the Ripper narrative, they would tell you M, Mary Jane Kelly, E, Elizabeth Stride, C, Catherine Eddowes, P, Polly Nichols. I mean, it is possible, but where is Annie Chapman? Unless Annie Chapman is a different killer. Unless Frank was Jack the Ripper and she was just helping him. And maybe she never betrayed him. The way she defended Frank was a bit too much. She kept claiming his innocence. She, as she was here in Newgate, locked up, she would send letters to Ah! You mad, mate! Sorry, kid trying to scare me, but they did shout in my ear. Anyway, I'm sure most of you remember where we are, but this is the site of Newgate. So that was the site where they did the public hanging for a while. At the time of Mary, no public hanging anymore. That was inside of the prison. After 1868, no public hanging. Anyway, so was there more to the story? It's very possible. Frank disappeared. After selling the items to Madame Tussaud, he left. Did he leave the country? We don't know. Did he go to Madrid? We don't know. Maybe. Was he involved? Officially, no, but we don't know. And was she Jack the Ripper? I doubt it, but you know, some people believe in the theory of Jill the Ripper. Oh, thank you, Linda. That's very much appreciated. Let me show you the Old Bailey last time. Some people, including Arthur Conan Doyle, he believed that Jack the Ripper might have been a female, because he was saying that for a midwife, for example, it was much easier to come out a bit bloody and stuff like that. Martin, good to know. And so yeah, it is. There's still a lot of mystery surrounding that story. It's still very much a murder mystery, even though we know who's done it. I'm not sure we know the full story. There's probably more to it. Anyway, she was hanged inside of the prison at 7 a.m. You had a lot of people waiting here anyway, because although they didn't do public executions anymore, you'd have a flag. Once the deed was done, they'll have a black flag above the prison. So people gathered there anyway, waiting for the flag, because they still enjoyed the atmosphere. Anyway, we've got a couple more executions that happened on Christmas Eve or the day before. Not here at Newgate, but those prisoners would have been locked here at Newgate, then taken on a cart down here, and pretty much the way we came from, they would have been taken down to the Tyburn. So the Tyburn was at Marble Arch. That's where they used to do the public executions before to do them here in front of the prison or inside of the prison. So most of the 18th century and even before that, well, until 1783 to be precise, a lot of the public executions were done at the Tyburn. And we had two interesting cases of people being executed for Christmas. One was a lady called Elizabeth Godfrey. In 1761, She was accused of petty treason. Petty treason was when you killed someone that was your social superior. Guess who she'd killed? Her husband. Because you know your husband was known to be your social superior at the time. In an argument, in a rage, she stabbed the husband. She was sentenced to be to be burned, not buried. She was sentenced to be burned alive. That was actually very rarely the case. Most of the time, the executioner would strangle them before to burn them, because being burned alive in the UK was absolutely horrendous because of the humidity in the air. You know, in Spain and stuff it's bad, but here it could take up to 2 hours to kill you. So Elizabeth was actually strangled before, but that was on 23rd of December, so it's the anniversary again today. I'm sure a lot of you remember where we are. This is Cock Lane, so that's the street with the scratching Fanny of Cock Lane and the golden boy of Pie Corner. But that's a story for another day. Now, there was another execution, same thing. He would have been taken down from Newgate all the way down to the Tyburn. His name was John Half-Hanged Smith. So from his nickname, you might be able to guess the rest of the story. John was he had been caught house breaking. He was basically a London burglar. He'd been caught. He'd been sentenced to death. They took him down from Newgate to the Tyburn. You know, the road would be very busy and people would be throwing feces at them or rotten vegetables or whatever it might be. And once they got to the Tyburn, he was hanged. Sometimes you could struggle for a few minutes, you know, when you were not hanged with a short noose, when your neck was not broken straight away, you could struggle a bit, but he was struggling for a long time. Although he had some friends in the audience, because you might remember we talked about that in some of my tours before. To make it quicker, sometimes you had friends in the audience that would be pulling your leg. That's the origin of the phrase pulling your leg. But that didn't work. He had some friends pulling his legs, but he wouldn't die. And after 15 minutes, the mood started to swap to a different mood. I'll show you Henry VIII up there. People started to shout, "Reprieve, reprieve," and they decided that it must have been fate. You know, God did not want to kill him. Might have been a Christmas gift, but they decided to let him go. He was let free, and he went back to his old habits of robbery. He was caught again, but then he was let go because of a legal loophole. And then he went back to the same trade or the same crimes, and he was caught again. And eventually, he was not hanged. He was sent to Virginia. You know, before to send people to Australia, they used to send a few prisoners down to Virginia. And, so yeah, that's why he got the nickname Half-Hanged Smith. It's actually quite similar to another case in Exeter. There was another guy in Exeter that was John Babacombe Lee in the 19th century. He was hanged. They tried 3 times and he didn't die. Eventually they let him go. There was one in, what's her name? Maggie Hangit in Edinburgh. She literally woke up. She was hanged, put into a coffin. They were taking her to the burial space when the coffin was like boom, 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 and they let her go. They were like, okay, well, technically she was sentenced to hang. She was hanged, you know, so they let her go. Anyway, we are now gonna go through the Smithfield Market, where there are a lot of butchers. You know, I was under the impression the market was closed last year because it's going to be moving outside of London. This is going to be turned into the new London Museum. But apparently some butchers have had the right to stay until 2028. So they're still going to do the meat. There's a Christmas meat auction on, I think it's tomorrow morning. probably 10 o'clock. They're selling, you get very, very good deal for your meat on Christmas Eve. Because of course they're probably closed for a couple of days after that, so they've got to sell everything. I'm gonna try to make it quick because I probably don't have permission to film over here, and I see some security. But yeah, I'm sure you remember the architecture. It is from the same architect as the Tower Bridge. Right, I'm gonna try not to be. See, you've got a poster. So this is the Christmas meat auction. So tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. I'm gonna make a move because I know they don't like me filming down here, so I don't want to be told off. I've seen two security with a very impressive uniform. Right, there's one last little murder story to tell you before we go. Some of you might remember we mentioned it before. It is the very tragic and very horrible case of Ann Naylor. Anne was she was a teenage girl in the 18th century. She was out of the workhouse. You know, at the time, there was a lot of extreme poverty. There was a lot of orphans, and the workhouses, the parish in general, they had created a scheme where they would put those kids learning a trade. You know, they might go with a baker, with a locksmith, with a hatter, whatever trade it might be. And at the time of Little Anne, so that's in 1758, that was very much something that was done. You know, the checks were, I mean, there was basically no control over it. So in some cases it became almost like slavery. You know, those kids would be sent to a shop. There was a bit of money as well coming from the parish to feed the kids, and they'll be taught a trade. In some cases it worked very well. I nefarious enough. What time is the opening of the market? This guy is asking. It's usually from midnight to 7 a.m. But I think tomorrow morning they're staying open a bit longer for the Christmas meat auction. Let me show you Mr. Monopoly here, Uncle Richie Pennybag. Now, so Little Anne, she was actually sent to a hatter in Mayfair on Bruton Street. You might remember we've been to Bruton Street last week. That's the street that goes down from Annabelle, you know, down to New Bond Street. That's the street where Queen Elizabeth II was born. Anyway, she was sent to a hatter with a lady called Sarah Metyard, a horrible lady. She had 5 little apprentices, but she didn't teach them anything. She would use them as free staff, really. She was very mean and she abused the kids very badly. And she had a daughter, another Sarah Metyard, but the daughter, although she was called Sarah, they called her Sally to make a difference. And the poor little Anne, she was a sickly child. She'd always been a little bit weaker than anyone else. Yes, German donor Michaela. So yeah, little Anne was she was very sickly, so she couldn't work as hard as the others. And when she was given a task, sometimes she'd take longer than the others. So she'd be beaten up, she'd be insulted, she'd be always targeted. All of them were treated badly, but particularly the poor little Anne. It was so bad that one day, in the middle of the night, she escaped. She opened the door, went down the street, but she had nowhere to go, she had no money, and she approached a milk guy, a delivery guy called Mr. Brown, and she was like, I need to escape, they're treating me badly, I don't know what to do. And Brown was like, well, go back, you need to go back. And she was like, no, I can't go back, they'll treat me even worse, they'll kill me. And Brown was like, well, go to the workhouse. So she went to the workhouse, but the workhouses, they were working with the parish, and they were working with that scheme, you know, the apprentices scheme. So The meat auction lorry, it's a big auction they have on Christmas Day to get rid of all the meat they've got before closing for Christmas. Apparently you get some very good deal if you're looking for a leg of lamb, or I've never been, not much of a meat eater anyway, but yeah. Anyway, so little Sarah was gone to the workhouse, and the workhouse, they sent her back to Mrs. Metyard. So when she got back to Mrs. Metyard, they beat her even more and more, and she was punished, and she was never fed, and she was beaten up until a point where she couldn't speak anymore. And one day she couldn't speak, she couldn't move, she was locked in the attic. All the other girls were there, and the girls were like, she's not talking anymore on Sally Metyard, so the teenage daughter. She was like, if she doesn't talk, I'll make her talk. And she grabbed the shoe and she hit the little girl with the heel of the shoe. And at that point she was probably gone. Now, when Sally realized what had happened, she told the other girls to go. She was like, go, she's going to be punished here. By that point, poor little Anne was dead. And Sally and Sarah didn't really know what to do. So what they did is they kept her upstairs, pretending she was alive, but punished. Every lunch and dinner, they would bring her some food, when they didn't before. They starved her before, and eventually they put the body in some kind of a wooden box, and they were like, we can't keep her here, it's gonna smell. But some of the girls were getting suspicious, especially Anne's sister. So one day, the body was hidden in the box. One day they brought a plate of meat, and they told one of the girls, go and give it to Anne upstairs. The girl went upstairs and she couldn't find Anne. They had opened the door and they were like, oh, the silly girl, she's escaped again. She's made it this time, she's gone, she's escaped. When the body was still there, it was hidden away, but she'd definitely not escaped. So that they believed that would stop the girl's suspicion. And eventually they were like, okay, we have to dispose of the body. So they waited for Christmas Day. Because at Christmas Day, the other girls, the other apprentices, they went back to their families to have a Christmas dinner with their family. So that's when Sally and Sarah decided to dispose of the body. They chopped off the poor little Anne. They put a hand in the fire, but that stunk. They were like, okay, we cannot burn the body because the neighbors will get worried. So they decided to go for plan B. They put the body in a case. They jumped on a horse and carriages to come down here. Right here there used to be a little street called Chick Lane. It's gone today, but it's pretty much where the station stands today. And their plan was actually to put the body down there was a bit of a sewer. Well, it was probably part of the River Fleet. You know, the River Fleet was like an open sewer over here. They actually sometimes called it the Red River because a lot of the butchers from the Spicefield market, they used to dump all the pig carcasses and rotten meat in the river, so the River Fleet was red. So the girls probably wanted to dump the little body in the river, but they couldn't push her over the wall, so they decided to just drop her there. I mean, I said the body, she was dead for weeks, so the body was already decomposed, you know. And it was a bad place to drop it. The body was found very quickly, but would you believe, sorry, it's very windy, the gimbal is moving. Would you believe the coroner decided not to investigate? Because what happened is we're quite close to St. Bart's Hospital, you know, where I showed you Henry VIII earlier. That's where they used to do a lot of dissections, illegal dissections with a lot of bodies stolen from the body snatchers. You know, we talked about the body snatchers in my tours before when we did a tour here. So the coroner believed that the body had been discarded after the anatomy lessons, that the body was no murder, that it was just a body that would have been stolen from the cemetery, dissected by the students, and then disposed of. So there was no inquest, there was no investigation, nothing. For 4 years. Until one day, so Sarah and Sally started to argue a lot. Sally had left her mother. She met a gentleman. She was in a relationship now. But the two ladies argued a lot. And the boyfriend, he overheard a few stuff, they were talking about concealing a murder, and eventually he was like, I know too much, I'm gonna tell the police. So it's Sally's new boyfriend that went and told the authorities, and they were caught. Luckily, there were a lot of witnesses. Mr. Brown, the milk guy, was found. The other girls, Anne's sister, she was gone. She had escaped successfully. We don't know what became of her, but she luckily escaped those horrible, horrible ladies. But the other girls, they had grown up a bit by then. They witnessed at the trial about the terrible treatment they got, and that even themselves, it was like modern day slavery. Well, not modern day, see, 18th century, old day slavery. The system could work well sometimes, but very often the system was abused. And actually, when we go to Fleet Street next week, I'll tell you about another case of terrible abuse of an apprentice like this. So the ladies were caught. They were found guilty. They were taken to Newgate prison, and they were hanged. Sarah Meteyard, she actually fainted on the cart on the way down to the Tyburn, so she was already unconscious when she was hanged. The executioner decided not to wake her, but younger Sarah, she was hysterical before to go down to the scaffold, and their bodies were dissected after being hanged. And it is said that the station, so Farringdon Station, where Chick Lane would have stood, it is said to be haunted by the ghost of poor little Nellie. Some people say that sometimes they hear some kind of moaning on the platform. So who knows? Right, that's going to be the end of the tour. Let me know in the chat if you have any questions about anything before we go. And thank you for being with me tonight. So many of you, it's always a pleasure. And hopefully I'll see many of you in 2 days' time. We're going down to Kensington Garden and Hyde Park early on Christmas morning. So we'll be talking about Peter Pan and all that. And I've missed quite a lot in the chat tonight, so apologies if I've missed any of your comments. And thanks everyone for your tips. If any of you dropped me a tip on PayPal or buy me a coffee, that's very, very much appreciated as well. Oh, I can show the QR code. I always forget, but if you're watching me live, you've got the links in the chat anyway as a pinned comment. But for those of you watching the replay in the next few months or weeks or days, you can also scan the QR code to buy me a coffee. And if I don't see you on Christmas Day, have a great Christmas. I'll hopefully see you next week in Fleet Street. And if I don't see you next week, have a great holidays in general, New Year's as well. Oh, actually, Fleet Street is after New Year's. It's on the 4th. So yeah, if I don't see you on Christmas Day, have a great Christmas and a great New Year's Eve as well. Let me remove the little thing. And thanks Sarah, thanks Disa, thanks everyone. If anyone was new to me, if you've made it that far into the live, you might want to consider subscribing, because the best way to join the live and not miss them is to subscribe, so you get a little notification if you hit the replays, but it's much more fun to be live in the chat with us. Thanks Sandy, happy Christmas everyone, or Merry Christmas. You might have noticed in the UK we often say Happy Christmas. I think in America you always say Merry. That's because, I actually Googled it recently, that's because you know we can say Merry Easter, it happens, but we're never gonna say Merry Birthday, for example. Sorry, my hair is all over the place. It's apparently because in Victorian times here, when we said Merry, sometimes it referred to being drunk. So some people prefer to say Happy Christmas rather than Drunken Christmas, basically. So that's why. Although some people say Merry as well, but we often say Happy Christmas down here. Anyway, thanks for coming, guys. Hopefully I'll see you on Wednesday. I know it's not a good timing for many of you. I know it's going to be the middle of the night for some of you on the American continent. So if I don't see you in the chat, hopefully you'll be able to enjoy the replay later. And you love the merry? Well, a good Christmas is meant to be merry. Unless you're pregnant, maybe. Then you don't want to drink. Anyway, thank you guys. Have a great holiday. Hopefully I'll see you down on Thursday. Is it Thursday? Yeah, Thursday morning. If not, I'll see you in the new year on the 4th in Fleet Street. Bye guys. See you soon. Thanks for all your tips on everything and have a great holiday. Bye bye.